All right, so welcome to the 24-25 ESSA Consolidated Application statewide virtual training being provided by various divisions in the Department of Grant Compliance and Administration at the Texas Education Agency. This presentation is intended solely to provide general information and guidance to Texas LEAs, ESCs, nonprofit subgrantees, and participating private schools receiving equitable services. The content in this presentation reflects the Texas Education Agency's current understanding of statute and applicable federal guidance. The content of this presentation is subject to change as a result of future guidance and/or other updates provided by federal agencies with regulatory oversight of these programs. This presentation does not constitute legal advice, and entities are therefore advised to seek legal counsel regarding the information and guidance provided in this presentation before acting upon the information provided. In this presentation, we hope that participants will gain a better understanding of the different parts of the 24-25 ESSA Consolidated Application, how to complete the application, and resources available for completing the application. We had various divisions contribute and that will be presenting today during today's training. From the Federal Fiscal Compliance and Reporting Division, we have Laura Salazar and Nelly Nino. From the Federal Program Compliance Division, we have Didi Garcia, Lenitra Guess, Idalia Ibanez, Nes Paniagua Jimenez, Gerardo Ramirez, and Vivian Smurl. From the Grants Administration Division, we have Tammy Michaels and Amy Samet. From the Division of Emergent Bilingual Support, we have Ricky Santayana. And today's training agenda includes various parts of the application. We'll have part 1, accessing the application. Part 2.1, we'll start with the program schedules. We'll then have a short break. Then we'll begin part 2.2, which is a continuation of the program schedules. We'll have a lunch break, then we'll continue with program schedules, move into the budget schedules, an afternoon break. We'll kind of do application review, amendments, and closing, and then shared services arrangements in part 5. So I'm turn it over to my colleague to begin part 1, accessing the application.
Good morning. My name is Amy Samet. I am a grant negotiation supervisor in the Grants Administration Division. I've been with TEA for almost 20 years, and I worked both as a negotiator and then was promoted to negotiation supervisor. I work with a wonderful team of 7 negotiators who are your guides and your mentors and your coaches through this process. We are here to help, and I'm very happy to have the opportunity to be speaking directly to you this morning. Let's get started with accessing the application. First, we're going to talk about getting access to eGrants. You can get to the teal login icon from TEA's homepage. You'll notice it is right there along the ribbon at the top of the page. The teal login page will give you access to teal, which is the larger group of applications, which includes eGrants. Next slide, please. Once you select that icon, you will be taken to this screen where you can either request a new user account if you are new to the system, or you can use this page to log in to your existing teal account. Now, if you're in the situation where you don't know whether you have a teal account or not, perhaps you're new in your current position, but you came from another district where you had a teal account, best to find out whether you have an existing account, because if you request a new account when you already have an account, that can become quite complicated. So look into that first to see if you already have access. But if not, we're ready to go right on to the next step. Oh, I meant to let you know that on that last slide, there is a link to a short video of how to request access to teal done by one of my colleagues, JJ Sanchez. It's just a 1-minute video, but it'll walk you through the steps. And sometimes seeing it on the screen is very helpful instead of just hearing these directions. Next slide, please. Thank you. Once you've established teal access, you will want to get the eGrants application so that you have access to eGrants specifically. I like to say that Teal is like a mall and eGrants is like a store in the mall. First, you have to get into Teal, then you request access to eGrants, and you will do that through the list on the Teal applications page. And again, you can watch another short video by JJ Sanchez, which will walk you through that process. Now, let's talk about the different roles. This is so very important because every year there's at least one grantee, and I'm going to say it'll go up to 20 grantees who believe they have access to eGrants as a grantee official when in truth they have access as a grantee manager. Let me talk about this chart a little bit. Across the top are different areas in eGrants. There's the contact section of eGrants. That's where the different contacts for the various grants are established on a page. Next, there's compliance reports. Then there are grants. Then there are special collections. Then there's the document library. I'm going to focus on grants. On the left-hand column, you'll see different roles. There's a grantee official, which is the same as an authorized official. There's a grantee manager, there's grantee staff, there's grantee writer and editor, and there's grantee viewer. The most important thing I'm here to share with you about this slide is that a grantee official and a grantee manager are not the same. The grantee official is usually the superintendent. Any superintendent automatically has grantee official or authorized official powers or authority. That individual can delete drafts of a grant, view grants, create grants, edit grants, save grants, and submit original grant applications. A grantee manager can do all of those things except they do not have the authority to submit original grant applications. So be sure you're clear on your role before you get started with this process. And again, there's another short video right here, eGrant Roles and Privileges, which will go over this information a little bit better. Oh, and one more thing before we leave this slide. If you're a brand new superintendent, yes, you automatically have the authority to submit original grants, but you still have to get into the system and get established in the eGrant system and in Teal if you're brand new. Thank you. Next slide. I'm going to hand this over to Dee Dee.
Thank you, Amy. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dee Dee Garcia, and I'm in the Federal Program Compliance Division. And I'm going to go over the resources available for the 24-25 ESSA Consolidated Application. If you're new to the application process, the best source of information for the application is what we call grant opportunities. Within grant opportunities, you would search for the 24-25 consolidated application. And on there, you will see a section that has application and support information. You can find the sample application. You can find the program guidelines that are related to each program within the application. You'll find a link for general and fiscal guidelines. Your provisions and assurances, there will be the general and the SM program specific. You'll also find if you're eligible for REAP, which is the Rural Education Achievement Program, which allows additional flexibility, which we'll go over that later in the presentation. You'll also find the SC 5000 Title I Part A Campus Selection Handbook, which is related to Title I Part A. There's also the Private Nonprofit School Equitable Services resource link. It provides you with all the due dates for the ADC, the application availability, when your last amendment is due, as well as your expenditure reporting due dates. You'll also have the program and funding contact information in the event that you have to contact TEA. Also, resources within, once you start the application process, you'll have links to schedule instructions. So as you're going through each schedule, on the top right-hand corner, you'll see a link that says instructions for each schedule. So if you need to go back on how to complete the schedule, you can press the instruction button. Also, on two schedules, you have the SC 5000, which is your Title I Part A campus selection schedule, also on your budget schedule, which is the BS 6001. You're going to have an additional button on those two schedules that say view or print report. For the SC 5000, that'll give you the report of the how you've completed the SC 5000, and it will sort it for you in descending order. And then on the BS 6001, if you are a fiscal agent, we highly encourage you to look at that schedule so you can view your SSA membership. We've added this slide to give you an easy access to all the grant application instructions. Once you get into grant opportunities, we provide you the sample of the application, but there are no individual links to the schedule instructions except within the application. So this slide will give you access to all the schedules with schedule instructions within the ESSA Consolidated Application. And of course, we're not happy unless we have tons and tons of resources out there. So all of our individual divisions also have resources available to you on our individual division websites. So the Federal Program Compliance Division website has training videos. We have training slides. We also have program guides, which are different than your program guidelines. They're more in-depth. We also have the Consolidated Comprehensive Needs Assessment. We have FAQs. In the Division of Emergent Bilingual Support for Title III Part A, they have a funding guidebook, Title III engagement website, and also FAQs. And then on Grant Administration website, they have the entitlements. That's where you would go now to see how much is your LEA receiving for every program that it's eligible for. It's got grant basics, applying for a grant, how to administer a grant resources, and FAQs. Then across programs, we have the Program Compliance Self-Check Guide, and that is to give you an understanding of what requirements we will be looking at throughout the year, and also what you report on your self-assessment at the end of the year through your compliance report. And we also have the CCNA, or the Consolidated Comprehensive Needs Assessment. Those are all the resources, and now I will turn it back to Amy.
Thank you, Dee Dee. I'm going to be speaking with you today about the SC 5003 Formula Grants Consolidated Schedule and the Applicant Designation and Certification Form. The name SC 5003 stands for Special Collection, and the 5003 helps me to remember that because of the 3 at the end, it is access to all of the big 3 program applications. The SC 5003 must be submitted to access the ESSA, Special Education, and Perkins grant applications. We tried to make this easier for you by putting it all into one form, making it comprehensive. All 3 grant programs must include any barriers to equitable access and participation for groups receiving services. And groups receiving services include students, teachers, and others. And the different barriers that you may be addressing would be items like gender bias, gang-related activities, visual impairments, hearing impairments, high mobility rates. It is not a bad thing to list barriers. Grants would not exist if there were not barriers. So don't hesitate to put items into the barriers section. You can also, though, choose that there are no barriers. That would be the first selection. If you make the second selection that barriers exist and they're being addressed or they need to be addressed, then you would select that button, and then you would include the barriers and the groups that are affected. In the next section, you address guidelines, provisions, and assurances and certifications. And this will give you an opportunity to state that you have studied all of the guidelines for all 3 grants. And there's also a question or two about lobbying. If your district participates in lobbying activities, you disclose that in this section, and there's a form to fill out, or you state, no, we don't participate in any lobbying activities. All 3 grant programs need to review the general and specific guidelines, provisions and assurances, and lobbying certification. That's in parts 1 and 2. The next slide will talk about the 3rd section. Next slide, please. This is the certification and incorporation section. Here, the authorized official who has already put his or her information in the contact section can select themselves from the drop-down menu and certify and submit this application. I'm sorry, not the application, those 4. Thank you. And next. Once the SC 5003 is complete, the applicant designation and certification form will open. The SC 5003 has been open since May 1st, and already we've gotten several calls. Why can't I access my ADC? And it's because the SC 5003 wasn't submitted. That has to be submitted before the ADC will open. Now, the ESSA ADC is available. Perhaps some of you who are in the audience today have already completed this step. There are 8 different funding sources, and for each funding source, you will make a selection. As a grantee, you will either apply on your own, you will apply as a fiscal agent, you will not apply at all, or you will apply as a member of a shared services arrangement. It's so very important to get these designations correct. If you find that the shared service arrangement that you intended to hook up with, or become a member of rather, is not listed, we need to be sure, or that you tell us so that we can contact the fiscal agent for the shared services arrangement so that they can submit their ADC. It was our hope that all of the education service centers would get their ADC submitted so that they would appear on the drop-down menu. Next, we'll talk about schedule status, which means the last update column, errors and warnings, and links to the schedule. Here in the table of contents, you can find where each one of the schedules that rolls up to your grant application is in process. And you'll see 2 green arrows here. The first one is status. Let's say you don't know whether the applicant information section is complete yet. You can go to the table of contents and find that. You can also look and see which schedules are not complete. This will help you see where you are in process. You don't need to complete the application all at once. You can submit, or rather you can complete one schedule at a time, and that way you don't have to feel pressured to finish it all in one day, and multiple people might be working on the application. You can also see when the last time someone worked on it was. There's a date stamp for when this schedule became complete. There's a date stamp for, in this example, when the purpose of amendment was complete. So often we find that grantees who believe they have submitted an application to us have simply completed it and saved it. So sometimes it's just a matter of one mouse click or one keystroke that will stop you from getting to the next step of this process. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to distinguish one thing here. Warning and error messages. A warning is a warning and an error is an error. A warning means that you should be aware that something may be wrong, but you will be able to progress to the next step. An error means you have to go back into the application and fix it before you can move forward. Over on the left-hand side of the screen, there's a green triangle that has an exclamation point in it. It says view errors. You can go to that screen and find out what is stopping you from submitting your application. In this example, when the grantee hit view errors, this one came up as an error, meaning unless this is fixed, the application cannot be submitted. And in this case, the problem was with the PS 3107, Title IV, Part A, and the error is that the amount budgeted was not equal to the total allocation. So that needs to be addressed and fixed. When you hit the save button, all of your errors will come over to this list. So don't be afraid to hit save. It doesn't mean you're saving it forever. It means you're saving it long enough to see whether there's anything that needs to be addressed or the next step in the process. Thank you. Next slide. Next is links to the application schedules. Once you go to the application schedule, you can see where you are in process. You can also access the instructions button on that page to get more information about how to complete that schedule. Next slide, please. The next section is GS 2100 applicant information. This is the page where you'll see the primary contact and the secondary contact, and you can access that information from the pull-down menu. Next slide, please. Thank you. On this slide, you will enter basic information about your organization, the address, the name, the UEI number, which should automatically populate for you, and you'll enter 2 contacts. The primary contact should be someone who can speak to the applications, familiar with the grant, familiar with the staff who serve on the grant, familiar with the forms, and can answer questions. The secondary contact has to be a different person, can't be the primary contact. This will double our chances of reaching someone who can help us if it is the grant negotiator who has to reach out to someone at the grantee organization. Please be sure this information is up to date. It is very easy to forget that you have a new email address, or perhaps someone on the staff got married and they have a different name. Perhaps someone in your applicant contact list has moved on to a different job, or someone else is taking over the ESSA grant. One of the best things you can do before you submit your application is comb through that list and be sure every single piece of information that's going to inform these applicant contact sections is up to date. This is one we found will bog down the process if it isn't taken care of well in advance. For everything I've already said to you today, I'm going to say look for it sooner rather than later. Checking your contacts is a worthwhile use of your time. Thank you. And next slide. I'm turning it back over to program.
Thank you, Amy. Next, we're going to go over a recommended schedule order and some important dates. Okay, I'm going to go over a recommended order. We're not saying this is the way things have to be completed, but once I start going through the order, you will notice that there are dependencies within the application, not only within the application, but also to other things that may be external. First of all, is the compliance report for the Gun-Free Schools District Report. That is the PR 6000. That is open now on eGrants for submission for 23-24. That report needs to be completed on eGrants in order for the district to receive a NOGA. If that report has not been submitted, then the application will sit there until that NOGA is submitted. I mean, until the report is submitted. Sorry about that. Yeah, we have, which Amy kind of went over, was the ESSA 5003, which is a special collection. And that needs to be submitted in order for the LEA to be able to access the ADC, or the Applicant Designation Certification Form. And remember, just a reminder that that SC 5003 is where you're actually certifying to those provisions and assurances. Those are, or if you're new to the application process, that is something that we will mention many times, that you are certifying to those provisions and assurances. What those include are the requirements for a program. And you are saying by submitting that application and by certifying the SC 5003, you are certifying to adhere to those requirements for the programs that you are applying for. Then next would be the GS 2200, which is the ADC form that actually opens up the application. Then you will start with the GS 2100, which is the very first schedule that will open when you open up the application after submission of the ADC. Then we get into many of the schedules within the application that have many dependencies. And just for clarification, now that we have most of the schedules listed here, there are things, you notice all the schedules have a PR, SC, GS, PS, BS. Those stand for something within the eGrants world. SC is special collection. GS is just a general schedule. PS is a program schedule. BS is a budget schedule. And PR is a performance report. So now to start with the schedule that we recommend after you complete the GS 2100. Once that is completed within the application, the schedules that you need to complete will become available to you. The PS 3109, which is your REAP and funding transferability schedule, has a dependency on your ADC and also whether or not you're eligible for REAP Flex eligibility. What will happen is only the programs you're eligible to apply for will become available to you under funding transferability. Then all programs, if you're REAP Flex eligible, all programs will open up for you. Then we recommend for the PS 3099, which is the private nonprofit school equitable services schedule. And that has a dependency on your PS 3109. Since the equitable services schedule actually calculates what that equitable share is, depending on how you complete the PS 3109 will have an impact on that amount for equitable services. Then we recommend the SC 5000, which is your Title I Part A schedule, and that has a dependency on the PS 3101, which is your Title I schedule. Then we have the program, the PS 6001, which is your budget summary, because that also has a dependency on PS 3101. Then we ask you to complete the Title I Part A or PS 3101 schedule, as that also has a dependency on PS 3109, SC 5000, and BS 6001. Then you have the Title I Part A, neglected, and Title I Part D, Subpart 2, which is the PS 3102 schedule. And that has a dependency on your Title I Part A schedule. And Title II Part A, which is your PS 3104, has a dependency on PS 3109, which is your REAP and funding transferability schedule, as well as the Title IV Part A, PS 3107. So that's a mouthful, but as you can see, there are a lot of dependencies within the application. Depending on how you complete one schedule could impact something that either needs to be verified on a different schedule, or if there's a mismatch, you'll get an error. And this is just a way to kind of alleviate the frustration in completing the application. It's not going to say that it's going to eliminate it, because you may still have that back and forth, but just to have a full understanding of what those dependencies are can kind of have a better understanding of how to complete the application. Then we have the remainder of the schedules, which we have the Title III schedule, which is your PS 30, excuse me, which is the PS 3106. The Title III Part A immigrant schedule, which is the PS 3114. And then you have all your budget schedules, which have a dependency on the BS 6001, which is your budget schedule. Then the last one is your waiver schedule. If needed, you'll have that, the 4001, but that's for TEA use only. These are some important dates. Some are already here, some are forthcoming. You've got the Gun-Free Schools report, which is the PR 6000, and accompanied that is the PR 6100 in the event if you did have any gun incidences reported at any campuses. You will tell us that on the PR 6000. Then the campus at which the gun incident occurred, that report needs to be completed. The report opened on May 2nd and is due June 28th. Then you had the ESSA Consolidated Compliance Reports, which will open on July 29th with a due date of September 30th. Both of those reports are as of for the 23-24 school year. Then we get into the 24-25, which is your ESSA Consolidated Application Schedule, which like Amy said, the SC 5000 opened on May the 1st with a due date of September the 3rd. The ADC for ESCs opened on May 13th with a due date of September 3rd. The ADCs for all LEAs opened on May 20th with also a due date of September 3rd. And then the application is May 20th, again, with due date of September 3rd. Then if you are a member of shared service arrangements for all of the programs, you are, even though you do not do the application, you do have to meet the requirement of completing the SC 3099. And that also opens up on May 20th with a due date of September the 3rd.